This is Bridget, Ashley, Landan, and Travis's 1980s project.
This is Robert. Robert wakes up, goes downstairs into the kitchen for his morning cup of coffee and his bowl of malto meal.
Gnarly.
Then he sits down on the couch
and turns on the morning news. Welcome to the Today Show on this December 31st, 1989. Later in this broadcast, we will take a look at today's top stories. But first, let us look at a rewind of the 1980s for all of you that have lived under a rock for the past 10 years. Let us begin back in 1981 when Ronald Reagan was elected president with George H.W. Bush as his vice president. He was elected into office when the American economy was in a deep recession.
Bad to the bone.
Reagan's strongest support came from his program, The New Right, which consisted of a group of conservatives who showed increased political influence. Jerry Falwell was the leader of the New Right.
Robert speaks up and says, "Hey, I know him. He's the pastor at my church, Thomas Road Baptist Church."
Like I said earlier, the economy was in a deep recession. Farmers were hit especially hard because agricultural exports declined, crop prices fell, and interest rates rose. Business bankruptcies rose 50% over the previous year. Luckily, by 1983, inflation had eased, the economy had rebounded, and the United States began a sustained period of economic growth. The annual inflation rate remained under 5% throughout the rest of the 1980s and into the 1990s. With Reagan's programs, Congress cut taxes and reduced federal regulation of the economy. After that, the economy boomed. Reagan started a new economic program called Reaganomics. This program was built on big tax cuts to encourage business investment. Although this seemed to make a positive impact, the drastic cuts in government regulation of industries affected the TV, trucking, airlines, and banking industries. Reagan wanted an increase in military spending for new weapons. At first, the stock market soared. Bad things occurred as a result of it, like deep cuts in social programs. This government action really hurt the poor. Homelessness increased along with the federal deficit. Another result of Reagan's administration was the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was developed in 1983. This program was a space-based missile defense system intended to defend U.S. from a Soviet attack. This stirred controversy because many were scared it would intensify the arms race, so it ended up getting canceled. As the debate went on, Reagan's revolution started to weaken. Growing concern was an emphasis of the Supreme Court, however. When he nominated Robert Bork, the Senate rejected him. The federal deficit reached over $200 billion in 1985, and the national debt began rising. Even with Reaganomics, the stock market crashed in 1987. There were savings and loan failures, but the general public continued to spend money throughout the 1980s. The rich got richer, and the poor got poorer. Yuppies were young urban professionals who spend money on nice, expensive things. This era of youth pretty much replaced the hippies. Because of the yuppies, the health and fitness industry exploded. The 1980s became a me generation of status seekers. Although self-image was very important to them, nerds became the hot commodity. Fashion was influenced by people such as Princess Diana, the First Lady Reagan, Madonna, and Calvin Klein. The first women's Supreme Court justice was appointed. Her name was Sandra Day O'Connor, and she opened the door for women across the U.S. It was very common to see items such as Smurfs, Cabbage Patch dolls, Nintendos, and Game Boys in the everyday American home. When you were in a hurry and needed a quick bite to eat or just didn't want to cook at home, fast food was the thing to do. Taco Bells and McDonald's began popping up all over America, as did Sweet Tarts, Nerds, and Hubba Bubba chewing gum. In the 1980s, the popular thing to do was to go on family vacations in RVs. New treatments for heart, cancer, and other diseases were developed. A tragedy occurred in 1986. I'm sure you all remember where you were, watching, waiting, and anticipating the Challenger liftoff in Florida. A short 73 seconds after liftoff, the Challenger exploded due to complications while in mid-flight and fell into the Atlantic Ocean. All 7 astronauts, including one teacher, were killed in this horrific accident. Because of the disaster, the shuttle program was suspended for 32 months.
Robert says, "Psh, I knew all that." Click.